The Gran Turismo 7 Elite car list has been something that's followed GT7 around ever since really day one of release. Now, if you don't know what the data mined or leaked car list is, it's basically a list of vehicles that have been found within the code of Gran Turismo 7. Now, there is some things to note that it doesn't always mean 100% that that car will come to the game, and it also gets updated on a pretty regular basis. So some of those car codes will kind of phase in and out of existence. Now, the last legitimate data mine list that I saw was way over a year ago at this point. This was an updated list with new cars added and some of the ones that had already arrived in game removed. Another thing to note that alongside the data mine car list, there will be other cars that get added to the game. Things like the Unimog I've never ever seen on a leaked car list, and it has been added, so that is a possibility as well. And again, not all of these are going to be 100% confirmed as coming to the game. You know, licensing these vehicles is such a thing. Anyway, so when it comes to the leaked car list, it's something that I'll refer to when we get these silhouettes released for Gran Turismo 7 to see if any of them do appear to be those cars that are mentioned in the data mine. Another thing to note as well, that when it comes to this video series, it's something I check back on maybe every year to 6 months to see how it's progressing. So today, I'm going to go through both the original leaked car list that launched very early into GT7's life cycle and the updated one. They do overlap in some parts, so let me show you the list on screen now. Once we've taken a look at the lists and codes, I will then combine both lists together and go manufacturer by manufacturer to see which cars have arrived to the game and which are yet to arrive. So let's begin then with the original leaked car list. This is the one that launched very early into Gran Turismo 7's life cycle. It's an incredibly big list, so I'm going to put it down into more bite-sized chunks and go through the vehicles here. So to begin with, we have the 190E Evo 2 from 1991. Then we have the 208 T16 Pikes Peak from 2013. 430 Scuderia from 2007, the 599 GTB Fiorino from 2006, the 5 Maxi Turbo Rally from 1985, the Ememia Aspara RX7 from 2006, the Arta from 2008, the Avantime 30 V6 from 2002, the AZ1 from 1992, the Buick GNX 1987, the Castrol NSX from year 2000, the Celica 1600 GT from 1970, the Celica WRC from 1995, the Chevelle SS 454 LS6 from 1970, the Honda Civic SIR 2 from 1993, the Coupe Turbo Plus from 2000, the CTR from 1987, the Delta HF Integrale WRC from 1992, the Eagle Type 122 from 2009, the Elise 11, the Elise 96, the Esprit V8 2002, Europa Special 1972, the Evora GT3M, the Evora GT4M, the Ford Roadster 1932, the Golf GTI 2005, and Impreza Sedan WRX STI from 2010. Now on to the next part of the list, we have the Impreza WRX STI 6 from 1999, Impreza WRX STI 2004, Lancer Evo 3 GSR 1995, the BMW M5 from 2005, the Nismo 400R from 1996, the Roadster 18 RS from 1998, the Audi RS6 Avant 2002, the S14 KS Aero from 1996, the XJ220 GT Road 1992, the Z430i, the Alphard 4-wheel drive 2018, the Caterham 7 Superlight RS500 from 2012, the Cayman GT4 from 2016, the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon from 2018, the Bugatti Chiron from 2016, the Chevrolet Corvette C1 from 1958, the Chevrolet Corvette Coupe from 1963. Again, that car is already in game and has been since day one. The Delta S4 Rally Car from 1986, the DeLorean DMC 12 Stage 1 from 1981, the Escudo Pikes Peak from 1998. Carrying on with the same list, we have the Lamborghini Gallardo LP564 from 2008, the Alfa Romeo Giulia GTA from 2020, the Toyota GR010 Hybrid from 2021, the Nissan GTR from 2007, the Impreza WRX STI 04 once again, that is already on the earlier part of the list, the Lancer Evo 8, the Lancer Evo 9, the Lexus LFA from 2010, the BMW M2 Competition from 2018, the Maserati Marek SS from 1980, the McLaren MP4-4 from 1988, the Pontiac GTO Judge from 1969, the Audi Quattro S1 from 1986. Again, I believe that car is already in game. Same with one of the later cars as well. Then we have the Audi R8 V10 Plus from 2016, the Lancia Rally 037 Evo 2 from 1984, the Roof RGT 42 or 4.2 from 2016, the Mazda Roadster RF VS from 2018, the Mazda Roadster RS from 2007, the Mazda RX-7R from 1991, the Ford Sierra Cosworth RS 500 from 1987, the Skyline Super Silhouette from 1984, the Audi TTS Coupe from 2009, the Bugatti Type 37A from 1928, the Volvo V40 T5R design from 2013, the BMW 2002 TII75, the BMW 2002 Turbo from 1974, the Mercedes-Benz 500e 1991, the Ferrari 812 Superfast from 2019, the Porsche 904 Carrera GTS from 1964, the Porsche 911 Turbo S from 1993, and to finish up, the Porsche 918 Spider from 2013. Now, as you can see, that is a lot of cars, and a lot of those cars have arrived to Gran Turismo 7 since. However, at the beginning of 2024, Charlie Muggins over on Reddit would actually update the list to remove the already released vehicles and show off some of the new vehicles on the list, as well as some had been removed at this point. So looking at the updated list, we can see the Afeela 2026 is now on the list. The next car that wasn't on the previous one was the Genesis Group 1 R Vision GT 2024. That is the Group 1 variant of the Genesis VGT. Now again, a lot of these cars were already on that previous list. One to note that wasn't is the R31 Skyline GTSR from 1987. Going down a little bit further, we have the Skoda Vision Gran Turismo from 2023, the Vantage from 2018, and then that basically completes the list. A lot of these were combined with the old list with some of the other codes removed. Now obviously combining both of those lists together, that is a lot of information. So what I'm going to do now is go manufacturer by manufacturer to go through every single car that has been on one of these two Leeds car lists. Okay guys, so strap in. Let's begin then with Afeela. Now of course this was a car that was shown off as a kind of Motability car, I believe. Anyway, it did actually release in Gran Turismo 7 at the beginning of last year. Nothing really special with this one. Let's move on to the next manufacturer then, and that's actually going to be Alfa Romeo. Now there's really a lack of these cars on here, and that is a real shame, and we actually already have it. This is the Alfa Romeo Giulia GT Am from 2020. One of my favorite cars in the entirety of the game, and there's a shame there's not more. Next up, Amemia. Now this is a tuning company, I believe, that mainly focuses on Mazdas. You can correct me if I'm wrong there. They do have their GT300 machine from 2006 in the Elite car list, and it's a shame this one hasn't shown up. Moving on then, we have Aston Martin. Now this one is honestly a huge shame because there's really not many Aston Martin already in Gran Turismo 7, and there's not many on this Elite car list either. It is just simply the Aston Martin Vantage from 2018, and that's your lot. Let's move on then to Audi next. Now there's quite a few of these, however some are already pre-existing. So let's begin with the one that is already in game, and that is the Audi R18 TDI from 2011. For some reason it's back on that Elite car list, and I'm not exactly sure why. Now in terms of other cars that have arrived to the game, the Audi TTS Coupe from 2009 is one of them. Again, this car came in, I believe, the February or March 2024 update. Then we have the Audi Avant. This is the older 2002 model, however I think this would be a fantastic addition to the game. Moving on then to a car that we do have once again, and that is the Audi R8 V10 Plus, which rounds up the Audi list on the lead car list. Moving on next then to K cars, we have AutoZam. You may have never heard of these guys, however they did produce one of the coolest K cars to ever exist. Of course, I'm talking about the 1992 AutoZam AZ1 K car. Again, it does have those gull-wing doors and it looks absolutely incredible. Autobacks next then, well, when it comes to very oddball race cars, if you've played a Gran Turismo game before, you probably know about this car. This is from 2008 and as you can see, it's a bit of Super GT machinery. Every single memory I have of this car, it was just racing around at the back. Next up then, BMW. There are quite a few of these. Again, some do exist and some not. So let's begin then. We have two versions of the BMW 2002. I'm probably butchering this, but the first is the TII. The second though is the one that we probably all know and love, which is the BMW 2002 Turbo. Again, a very cool car, and I'm incredibly surprised that it hasn't made it in to Gran Turismo 7. Then one that a lot of people have been asking for, at least some type of BMW M5, and this is the M5 from 2005. A lot of people really want an M5 model in Gran Turismo 7. Next up, one of the most recent additions to the game is the BMW Z4, of course coming alongside update 1.56, and a car that does already exist to finish off is the BMW M2 Competition from 2018, a very good car overall. Let's move on then next to Bugatti. Now there are actually going to be two cars on this list. One is already in game and one isn't, and I don't know if it ever will be. Now the first is the Bugatti Chiron. This again basically made the invite system to GT7 completely irrelevant, considering you have to invite the Bugatti but not the Chiron. And the next one is the Type 37A, I believe from 1928. This to me would be a seriously cool and classic addition. Now in terms of American cars, we do have Buick on this list, and there's really only one car for it. Of course, I'm talking about the Buick GNX. This for me is a car that has to be in the game. It's a seriously cool American muscle car, incredibly good looking and incredibly quick. Moving back to British brands next, we have Caterham. Again, this is one that you might not have expected to see on the list, but it is on there with one single model, and that is the Caterham 7 Superlight R500 from 2012. For me, this would be a great one-make addition. Chevrolet up next. Now there are a few cars from Chevrolet, of course there is. Again, some of these already exist and some do not. The first is the C1 Corvette. Again, this car came in 2023. It's had engine swaps since then. Overall, a very good car. Then we have the Chevy Chevelle. Again, this came at the beginning of 2024. A very good addition, but I feel like the standard tires on this one were just absolutely terrible. And then there is one that has been in the game since day one, and that is actually the Chevrolet C2, which for some reason sits around on that list. Next up, DeLorean. Again, this car pretty much does exist, but for a different model year. I believe it's 2002 or 2011 that we have currently in game. Well, this is the Stage 1 with the classic 1980s model year on it. For some reason, it's on the list. Next up then, Dodge. They only have one single car that has ever made it onto the elite car list, and that, well, you can probably guess since we already have it. This is the Dodge Challenger Demon. Yes, an absolute ridiculous car. Came alongside the Spec 2 update. So that is it for Dodge. Now Eagle. This is a strange one because it actually is an internal code name for the Lotus Evora. So it is completely non-existent, and it's not actually the car that's being shown on screen. So Eagle does not exist. It was just a code name for the Lotus Evora. However, we can still dream. Next up then, one of the big ones from the leaked car list is of course the Italian brand Ferrari. When it comes to Ferraris, we do have the 812 Superfast up first. This car is not in-game at present and still hasn't shown up after all of these years. Now in terms of the other cars, it's a bit of a mixed bag. We have the 430 Scuderia. This came alongside the one and only big update from 2024 in July. Again, a Gran Turismo certified classic really at this point. And the 599, this is one that really should have been in the game since day one. Unfortunately, it still hasn't shown its face, and I think it's a real shame because this is an incredibly cool car. Moving on then to Fiat, they have one single car that has ever existed on the leaked car list. You can probably guess, yes, it's the Fiat Coupe Turbo. This is an absolute classic car from Gran Turismo games of old, and I really want to see it again. A seriously cool car from Fiat that seems to go forgotten. Let's move on then to the Blue Oval and Ford. Again, there's really not many of them here, surprisingly enough, and we do actually, I believe, have both of these. So the first one is the Ford Hot Rod. Of course, we did get this right at the start of Gran Turismo 7's post-launch content, and the second is the Ford Sierra Cosworth RS500 coming in November of 2022, and that is actually going to complete Ford. Genesis then, again, this is a brand that's very hit and miss. There was one car that has ever appeared on the leaked car list and it already has appeared. That is the Group 1 variation of the Genesis VGT, known as the Grand Racer. A pretty cool bit of kit, but again, very much a fantasy car. Honda then, there's a real lack of them actually. There's only two that's ever been on the leaked car list. Both of these have appeared in game. The first is the Honda NSX GT500 from the year 2000, the iconic Castrol liveried one, my favourite car of last year to be added. And the second is the Honda Civic EG. Again, this came towards the end of last year, around the kind of midpoint. So in terms of the next one then, we have Jaguar. Jaguar for me are a brand that just deserve more cars in Gran Turismo, and unfortunately that's not really the case. They have one car on that leaked car list, and that is the XJ220, which of course we have already long received, and unfortunately that's a lot. Moving on then, we have Lamborghini, and this one was quite surprising for me. There was just one car that is on both of these leaked car lists, and we do have it. That is the Lamborghini Gallardo from 2008, and unfortunately that's the lot. There's a lot of modern cars I would love to see from this brand, but unfortunately it doesn't seem to be. Then we have Lancia, another Italian brand, and I feel like they get overshadowed by the likes of Maserati, Lamborghini and Ferrari. They have 3 different rally machines on this list. The first is the 037 Lancia. For me, this should have released at the beginning of last year when the movie surrounding Lancia actually released. Then we have the 1992 Lancia Delta Integrale, of course another WRC legend, and unfortunately hasn't arrived as of yet. And to finish off, probably the most ridiculous of the bunch, the turbocharged and supercharged Lancia S4. Make it happen, Polyphony. Moving on then, Lexus. There was just one car by Lexus, and of course, you probably know this, but we already have it. It's the iconic and incredible sounding Lexus LFA. Again, we got this during the Spec 2 update, and since then there's been no more on any other Lexus cars coming to the game. Let's move on then to one that will probably never ever happen, but I do want to give them a mention. That is of course Lotus. There's a lot that went down between Polyphony and Lotus, which means they'll probably never ever get featured. Their first car is the 1996 Lotus Elise, one of the most beautiful cars of all time in my opinion. Next up we have the Lotus Esprit V8. For me, this is an early days Gran Turismo classic. I always remember this one spinning out at turn 1 at Grand Valley. Next up we have the Lotus Europa Special. Again, a pretty cool car, especially from Gran Turismo 2. I have a lot of memories in this during the early races of the game, but unfortunately it will probably never see the light of day. Then we move on to 2 race cars. We have the GT4 and GT3 variant of the Lotus Evora. And again, these were probably there for the manufacturer races and such, of course taking part in the World Series. But again, since Lotus are not in the game, none of these will probably ever see the light of day. And to finish off, we have another Lotus Elise in the form of the 2011 model year. And again, we'll probably never ever see Lotus due to the whole pay thing. Moving back to Italian brands then, we have Maserati here, and again, whilst we do have a couple of their post-launch cars, only one ever made it onto the leaked car list, and that is the Marek. Again, this was added, I believe, in 2022 or the beginning of 23, sometime around then, but again, we do already have this in game. Let's move on then to Mazda. Now this seems like there's going to be a lot of them here, and if you're a Roadster fan, Miata fan, or MX-5 fan, you're probably going to be in heaven. Now the first is I believe it's called the NC variant, or the Generation 3 variant of the Roadster, Miata, MX-5, etc., whatever you want to call it. Then we have the most up-to-date model, and I believe this is called the RF. As you can tell, it's very much the hardtop version, and for me, the best looking version of that generation. Then we have a strange one. This is the M2 1001. I really want to see this one to the game because I think it's one of the more interesting cars on this list. Then we have the Mazda Roadster from 1998. This is, I believe, called the NB version, or the second generation. And then to finish off, we have another RX-7. This is from 1991, and I think it looks absolutely beautiful. I would do anything for this in the game, and to have more variations of the iconic RX-7. Next up then, McLaren, just one single car on the list, and you can probably guess which one that is. Of course, it's the Honda McLaren MP4-4, driven by the late great Ayrton Senna. If there was any McLaren I'd wish for, that would be an updated GT3 variant, since there's a complete lack of them. Next up then, Mercedes-Benz. There are two cars on this list from this iconic brand. Now the first has arrived, that is the Mercedes-Benz 190e Evo 2, an absolute classic car to Gran Turismo, and it's great to see it back since Spec 2. And the other one, which I would absolutely love in game, is the massively boxy shaped Mercedes-Benz 500e. Again, Polyphony, make this one happen. Moving back to Japanese brands next then, and it's going to be Mitsubishi. Now all three of their cars that have appeared on the leaked car list have arrived. So the first is my favorite post-launch car from 2023, really caught me by surprise, this one. That is the Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 3. Now in terms of the next two, we have the Lancer Evo 9 and Lancer Evo 8. Both of these cars came during 2024. Both continued the fact that pretty much every Evo in GT7 is fantastic and amazing with engine swaps. No complaints here. All three of these cars have arrived to Gran Turismo 7 during its post-launch content. Next up then, Nissan. There's going to be quite a few of these, so strap in and get ready. Some have appeared and some have not. The one that hasn't appeared actually really caught me by surprise. This is the 2007 Nissan GTR, basically the original variant. We have pretty much every single variant apart from that one. Then we have the Nissan Nismo 400R. This is an incredible car, and it is great to see it. Again, I believe came alongside the Spec 2 update. Then we have the Silvia S14 Aero. This car did arrive, I believe, during 2023 or 2022. I could be wrong on that one. We do have both variants. Now, a car that is already in game but on the list for some reason is the Silvia S15 touring car. A great car, but not quite sure why it is on the list. Then we have the R31 Nissan Skyline GTS-R. A great car, arrived last year, and great to see the R31 getting some love. And then we have the Super Silhouette. This was a car that hadn't been seen since Gran Turismo 2, making its grand return in Gran Turismo 7 in the early days of post-launch. Next up then, we're going over to France with Peugeot and their one single car on this list. We did get the 205 recently, but it was never on here. And this is the 208 T16 Pikes Peak. Honestly, make Pikes Peak happen and add more Pikes Peak machinery. We need a rival to that Escudo Pikes Peak. Then we have Pontiac, one single car from them, and it has already arrived. Of course, I'm talking about the Pontiac GTO Judge. I feel when people talk muscle cars, they just seem to forget Pontiac a lot, and for me, the GTO is one of the coolest American muscle cars to ever exist. Now next up is going to be Porsche and Roof. I'm going to put them together, although they are different brands essentially, but it's easier just to bundle them into one. Now the first, I believe, is the 993 Porsche 911 Turbo S. This is one car that has not arrived yet, surprisingly enough. So yeah, who knows, that one could possibly happen. Then we have the Cayman GT4 from 2016. This one did arrive again very early into GT7's post-launch car content, and one of my favorite handling cars. Then we have the Porsche 918 Spider. Again, I think we all know this one did arrive. It's fantastic. There's some incredible transmission glitches you can do with this thing to reach ridiculous top speed. Then we have the Carrera GTS, a very surprising car, incredible on both tires and fuel, great for the 700 pp Le Mans. Then we do have the Yellowbird, perhaps one of the most iconic Gran Turismo cars of all time. It hasn't been seen or added yet, but it is on that original leaked car list. Then we have the RGT 4.2. This came along in July of 2024 during the biggest update of the year. A very, very quick car. Now we're going to move on to Renault. So back to French machinery. There are two Renaults on this list, one surprising and one not. So let's begin with the one that's not really a surprise. This is the Renault 5 Turbo. Of course, the Maxi, the rally going version, needs to happen. Then we have the Aventime. This one would be an absolute meme car, and for me just kind of makes sense to really fit into GT7's post-launch car. Then we have Skoda. Unfortunately, the brand was on the list, but really it's only one single car and it already exists. This is the Skoda Vision Gran Turismo. Incredibly disappointing that no other Skodas have shown up since that. For me, it's just a bit of waste of having the licensing for the brand. Then we have Subaru. Now it's a little bit strange because there are a fair amount of Subarus on this list that are very similar or already exist. The first is the 2010 sedan variant. Whilst it probably does have its fans, I remember when this one launched, a lot of people just really seem to hate it. Then, of course, we have the 2004, which was listed twice. I believe it's the Blob Eye variant. This already exists. And then one car that's been there since day one is the 1999 model. Again, it's been around ever since the launch. Then we have Suzuki with one single vehicle. You can probably guess this one. This is the Suzuki Escudo Pikes Peak, an absolute iconic Gran Turismo machine that thankfully did return and didn't just sit on this elite car list. So great to see it back in GT7, even if it does have a lot of turbo lag. Toyota then, a lot of vehicles from these guys. However, pretty much all of them have arrived in game. So the first is the Toyota Celica 1995 WRC rally car. Of course, we do have the ST205 WRC in game. Then we have the Toyota Celica 1600 GT. For me, this is a bit of an icon of Gran Turismo 4, and unfortunately, it just hasn't arrived to GT7 yet. Then we have the Toyota Alphard. This has been on the elite car list, and it has arrived. Of course, it was ridiculous. A lot of people kind of love it or hate it. Then we do have the GR010 Hypercar. This seems to get updated pretty much every year. Of course, the most up-to-date livery is currently in game. This is the 2021 model. Then we have Volkswagen. There's just one single car from Volkswagen for some reason, which really did surprise me, and that is actually the Generation 5 or Mark 5 Golf GTI. And unfortunately, that's a lot from Volkswagen. A very surprising addition, that one. The fact that there's just not more of them. And to finish off, the final one is Volvo. One single car here, although we do have it in game. There was another released alongside it. Of course, I'm talking about the V40 R design. And with the V40 comes the end of the leaked car list of Gran Turismo 7. That is every single car that's been leaked. Again, in terms of these leaked cars, some have been removed from the code, unfortunately. Some may still happen, some may not. Who knows when we'll see them or if we'll ever see them. And of course, some of them have already arrived. Just because a car is not on the elite car list doesn't mean it won't come either. We do have cars that kind of pop up last second and then get thrown in the game during updates. Again, the Unimog is one that I've never seen on a leaked car list, but there it is in GT7. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Huge thank you to all of my channel members, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Peace.